I was born in 18 Ludlow Street, Grangetown, and I used to visit my gran who had lived in Clive Street. Going to school, I was always late. I had an Alsatian, and I would go to school, and I don't know who would open the door after I'd gone. I'd get up to school, there was the dog. I'd have to take the dog all the way back home, and then of course when I got back again, I was late, so I had the cane nearly every day. There was nothing I could do about that, of course. I used to go to the children's meetings in Ebenezer, and on January 1941, I went to the one meeting there, and we came out, and the siren went, and I was about as far as Grange Gardens then when the siren went, and Mr. Holloman from the bakery was there, and he was calling all the children into the bakery to his air raid shelter, which he had underneath the bakery. Well, a lot of children coming from Ebenezer went in. I said, no, I won't come in. I haven't got far to go now home. I'll carry on going home. So, of course, I went home. But I didn't know until the next day a bomb had dropped on the bakery and killed everybody in there. All the people who went in the bakery, unfortunately, a bomb dropped there and everybody was killed.
My name is Valerie Howard, and my maiden name was Mayne, M-A-Y-N-E. I was born and brought up in Corporation Road, 61, and I went to Grangetown School, Bromsgrove Street School, and my father was a coal merchant, and I lived opposite Holloman's bakery. My father was chief fire warden, and we knew about the raids before anyone else because he had to go and call out the other wardens. And also, I remember the bomb falling on Holloman's with, unfortunately, some of the limbs were in our back bedroom because all the windows blew out. But our front door was the only one with the original glass in because we left it open.
I remember when we were at school and we were living down, I believe we were living in Price Griffiths, that's how we were allowed to go home. And we were running down past the Casnevs when one of the lads shouted, look at this aeroplane, and somebody shouted down, or duck, one of those two. We all made ourselves scarce, as only troublesome youngsters like us could do. And this thing machine gunned down through Holmesdale Street from the school down as far as the square. I can't say any more than that because I was still standing on somebody's window ledge. And next I heard it was the local midwife, was Nurse Richings, and was injured on the hand, I believe. And I believe she was the only injury. All the lads, us cheeky monkeys, we managed to avoid being hit. And that was the only time that we actually, I can say that I was attacked as such.
My name at that time was Mary Bull, and I lived in 35 Cambridge Street. And at the time the war broke out, I was 5. And when these raids happened, I was about 6 or 7 years old, I think. That horrific night I've got very clear memories of. And being in the air raid shelter, and my father taking us as children out of the air raid shelter just to stand outside to see the sky all red with flames, and it was horrendous. The noise was incredible, and smoke. Because I am asthmatic, and I remember it was so difficult to breathe because have a bomb so close. And of course there were bombs dropped in Holmesdale Street near the post offices used to be. So there was a lot of debris and smoke in the air, and it was a very unpleasant feeling in the air. Mostly it was my memories of this bright red sky and aeroplanes still you could hear them in the background. And as children we knew the difference in the sound of the German aeroplanes and the Spitfires. And it used to be a very low, dull sound, whereas the Spitfires were higher and more rapid sounds. Our air raid shelter was one of the Anderson shelters that was built into the ground, And it was probably the most beautiful one around because my grandmother decorated it. We had curtains and matching bedspreads and flowers. It was all beautifully organised. And in fact, she and my grandfather, because she was quite enormous, she was about 21 stone, I would think, to get her out of bed and downstairs, by the time that used to happen, the air raid used to be over. So they decided the safest thing was that she slept down in the air raid shelter, which she did for many, many months. She and my grandfather slept in the air raid shelter. And when we were in school, I remember that they gave us each a little tag of a special brocade rhythm, and mine was blue, and you had different coloured ribbons. And when the air raid sirens went, you went into the playground and went to a certain place that was your colour. And when you were all there, the teacher counted you all for the right colour. They just said run, and you ran for home as fast as you could. And so I don't remember being afraid. And we carried gas masks to school every day. And my sister reminded me today, because she's a bit younger than me, that I was very upset because she had a Mickey Mouse gas mask and I had a normal one. On the way to school, you saw who could collect the biggest piece of shrapnel. A girl in my class was called Audrey Holloman, and I think it was her family that had been bombed out. And I remember that she wasn't in school for a while after that. And the coldness, I remember, we used to be in bed, and then we would be woken up and told, get out of your beds quick. We didn't have time to dress. And they just threw coats and blankets around us to carry us down to the shelters. I have to tell you this, although I had to verify it with my sister this morning, but she can remember it as well. My father was in the Home Guard and was an air raid warden, and we just can't believe this. He actually came into the air raid shelter carrying what my sister and I remember as a bomb to show us. Unbelievable. And he was normally a very cautious guy, so he must have known it was detonated or something, but we clearly remember this metal cylinder that was a bomb, or maybe a hand grenade or something. Anyhow, we remember that distinctly.
My name is John Williams. I started as a boy, 14, when I went to work for the Holloman brothers in Corporation Road. He had a horse and cart, and Bill Holloman, my boss, he showed me how to harness the horse, how to catch him first, down in the field. I used to go on a round, like start at the bakehouse in Stockland Street, Corporation Road, then up to Cummer Street, a couple of customers there, into Taff Embankment, and then across the road bridge. I think there was a couple of houses I used to go to, I think Percy Street, and then come back into Penarth Road. I used to have to gallop him up by Tresillian Terrace, get into St Mary Street, cross the Cladis Road Bridge and into the docks, and then I used to go to Hunter Street, make my way down Corporation Road, and there was a funny incident there. I was serving the customer with my bread basket, like I saw the horse suddenly go rigid. I thought, oh, what's the matter with him? Anyhow, the next thing he was off. There was an American tank coming down Corporation Road. This very night that the tragedy happened was January the 2nd, 1941. And January the 1st, 1941, I used to do my round. I used to come home, and there was all the family in there. And I used to go in and have a nice bowl of soup and have a little chat, then go on and home. But this night, there was a lot of air activity about. And Bill Hardiman, who was my immediate boss, said to me, I think you better go home tonight, John. He said, your mum and dad might be a bit worried about you. So I went home. Of course, when I went to work the next morning, they'd had a direct hit and everybody was killed. They had a shelter underneath their shop, reinforced it, and if any passers-by was about, they used to go in there. But of course, the family was Bill Holligan and his wife and his 12-year-old daughter, one of the uncles, and his sister. There was always a controversy about how many was in the shelter. Went to work the next morning. There was a couple of firemen there still putting the hose on, and of course, a very cold night. There was ice. I mean, at the 3-story building, it was flat. I understand the bomb went right down to the cellar before it exploded.
I was 13 on the night that we had our first Blitz here in Cardiff, and I was having my first birthday party because I was a teenager, and I was out helping my mother prepare the things for my party the next day when my mum lover was saying, "Oh, look at all the pretty lights coming down from the sky," not realising they were the flares. So we ran out to the front to see these pretty lights coming down. When my mother got told off for leaving a light on, and of course it was a blackout then. But sadly, you know, two of my friends who were coming to the party, they were killed and others injured as well. I always think of those when it is my birthday now. As soon as I wake up, I think of my two little friends.
I'm Mrs. Worry now. My maiden name was Ford. I was born in Stoughton Street, 62 Stoughton Street it was, but we got awarded the best dressed street when in King's coronation or something, so they renamed it Jubilee Street. The night of the Blitz is January 1941. At the time, I had a bad cough, so my mother sent me to the shop on the corner. The area warden hadn't gone. When I'm coming out the shop, I heard this terrific drone and everything, nothing. And I looked up, the sky was full of German planes. That frightened me altogether because you could literally, you felt you could jump up and touch them, they were that low, you know. But you couldn't see the sky because it was full of aeroplanes. Of course, that frightened me. And when we got home then, the first incendiary bomb dropped next door in the bedroom, because the bedroom was all on fire. But the area warden hadn't gone. So halfway down the street I was running, and then the area warden went. My mother couldn't go in and Father couldn't go in the area shelter because it was full of water. So they had to go into the stairs. So there was my mum, my dad and me, 3 chairs under the stairs. Well, then my brother came in because he was working as an errand boy with his friend. So when they came in, there was no room for me, so I was sent across the road to Mrs. Dibble. Well, then I heard this horrific bang. Well, it was terrible. And when the all clear went, well, there was no houses across the road, all flat. Of course, I was screaming. My mum and dad was in there. I thought my parents were gone. Mrs. Dibble's daughter took me out. She was dragging me up the street, and there was a hole in the ground in the middle. What had happened, the parachute that had come in on the landmine, it hung, you know, remember the lamppost with the two, because we used to have the ropes playing on it, and it hung on that and it slid down the road, and there was a big hole, and Mr. Burns was in there. He was the air raid warden, and he was shouting, "Help me, help me." And that poor man, I don't know, never heard after. He must have died because he was in such a state. He must have blew him, you see, into the hole. The state he was in, it frightened me just looking at him. And the woman with me, Mrs. Dibble's daughter, she was nearly 21, and she was dragging me up the street. She said, "We got to help ourselves." At the time, I thought it was cruel. Because I was more interested. I got no mother, no father, no brother, no brother's friend. So she took me to Hereford Street then, to her sister's. Well, all night long, I was in a terrible state, because I was only 12 and a half. Took me to my auntie's, my mother's sister, who lived in Tudor Road. And when we got there, my mum and dad was there. So you can imagine. My mum said what had happened. The house was all down, but one wall held at the back, and they got out through a hole. My brother's friend, my mother, he saved his life, she did, keep his head above the debris, you know. And funny enough, my brother married his sister. Teddy Oregons, they were called. They lived in Leckwith, because he brought him there because it was too far to walk after the air raid was gone. My mother and father was, you know, God looked down on them that day, because the whole house had gone when I got out. And after they got out, the wall collapsed. But I didn't know this at the time. And then 2 doors up, the Nichols lived. Mr. and Mrs. Nichols had one son, he was in the army, and she had 3 daughters. Well, the one daughter stayed at home, but the married daughter and our little grandson went to the cinema, the central cinema, with her other sister. So they left the little boys 3, the sister, mother and father. The 4 of them were killed. Oh, it was hard going. It was really hard going. Every night you got to get up, just go to sleep, and let it go. Oh, down again. But that night it was late going off the early morning. I don't know why, because my mother wouldn't have sent me to the shop for a cop mixture.
My name is Edward Bush, born in 1933, and I lived in Jubilee Street, and this is where the luckiest part of my life started. I was 8 years of age. First of all, my father joined the army, and I say he was the luckiest soldier in all the army because he was stationed just outside St. Helens, Castleton. On that particular night, it was a couple of days after Christmas, and my father had the use of an army car, so he came home to our house in Jubilee Street and said to my mum, "I've got the car and more or less treat you to see the cinema, and the Olympia cinema at that." And it was a George Formby film. I can remember every part of it. So when we went watching this film, George Formby, It's in the Air. And after about half an hour, we're all looking and everything, and up comes a caption, "There is an air raid, please make your way out." By this time, it's my father, my mother, my auntie, and my uncle. So there's 4 adults and myself, 8 years of age, and in we clambers into the car. Now the first thing that I see now, father drives just 100 yards around the castle, and there all around the castle was a half a dozen incendiary bombs just sort of blurring flames on the pavement. And I glanced over to the left, and there was a soldier lad trying to kick one out. We drive through Cardiff, up the Tumble Hill out of Ely, in second gear of this Ford 8, and it's clambering up the hill, and I look back, and suddenly I'm looking at a car that was an hour or 2 ago in black. It was all lit up like Blackpool. Righto, back there we go. God bless my auntie, gives us board and lodge there then. Next morning, come on, Dad says. My mother and father jumps in the car, and we drive back. We're coming through Ely now, next day in daylight. It was all fire hoses over people. Down Canton, there was fire hoses. And my father's car went over the hoses, and we turned right now, going down Dispensary Gardens, down under the bridge by Court Road, Grangetown. Turns right into Court Road, 4 streets down is our little street called Jubilee Street. We turn the corner, we look at the house, which was a rented house, and there, shock. Mother burst into tears as my father pulls up the car, firemen, everything is smoking and dust, and I look over the dust, and my mother, as I say, burst into tears, and I, as a boy, looking, this is not right. I didn't realise how serious that was. There was people killed. We had an air raid shelter, the Anderson shelter, which was full of water, which we would never used. We would have always used underneath the stairs. Gone. My father went in up the rubble with the rest of the firemen, but he went in, and 3 things I know. One was my photograph in the hallway, which had a cracked glass, and I think I renewed the cracked glass. And the train said that the bomb was still wrapped up on the table, and he went up to get 4 or 5 £1 packets of sugar, which was so rich, That was 3 items. That's what I always tell this story. There was 3 items. The luck is that we were going to have to take my auntie back to Port Talbot that night. Otherwise, if they hadn't been in that little party, we would have gone back to Jubilee Street. That's all, and that's my word, luck. God bless George Formby for 4 lucky moves that night. George Formby. And when I see him on talking pictures now and again, that pops